the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AV Nation.
This is AV Nation.
This is AV Week, episode 131, recorded Friday, February 21st, 2014. Frozen Bill Gates.
Ready.
AV Week.
Performing scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AV Week. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. My name's Tim Albert. I'm your host. How are you? The noise you hear in the background is Matt D. Scott. He's from Omega Audio Video. Proud Canadian this morning. Look at the camera, Mr. Scott.
I'm looking, sorry.
Say hi.
Hi.
Matt's doing it from his work truck because he's getting ready to go to a work site. That's how dedicated this brother is.
We are hardcore.
We are hardcore. And as an American, congratulations to the women's hockey team. I understand you were left wing on that team, so.
I was left wing?
Yes.
I was.
Yeah. Sorry.
You could tell by my pink skates.
Yes. All right. And
I didn't make the cut.
I know. You wouldn't.
No,
Josh Shraga is also here from ICS and soundreason.org. How are you, sir?
Doing well. It's still too early on the West Coast.
I'm sorry. That's one thing about doing it this early. The fact that, Josh was nice enough to join us. I said, I'm doing it like at 10 Eastern. That's like 5 a.m. Pacific time. He's like, yeah, that's fine. So,
he's dedicated.
He is dedicated. This week we're going to talk about a couple interesting products. One is they're not fake cables. They're just cables that don't do a darn thing. And you shouldn't be buying them, and you need to educate your customers not to buy them. Some companies that sell lamps found some fake ones in their inventory, and we're going to talk about how to mitigate that in your own inventory and how to tell if you got a bad one. Sony is bringing smaller 4Ks, and I'm questioning why, and so I'm going to ask these two smart guys as to why. And we're going to talk about a new switcher from Extron that some people think is the competitor to the Innova from AMX and the DMPS from Crestron, and I personally do not. But first, this week, Infocom 2014 announced that it has opened its registration. So if you are going to Infocom 2014, sponsored by Microsoft, Crestron, and Panasonic, get yourself online. Go to infocomshow.org. There's a couple different reasons to go, not the least of which is you get to see, Matt Scott's lovely face.
That's kind of the reason to go.
Well, you're always very well dressed.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
Why else would you go? It's like it's Vegas. There's nothing to do.
Yeah, there's nothing to do
see.
with Vegas.
It's the middle of the desert. Who wants to go there in June?
Exactly.
Well,
actually, nobody wants to go there in June.
No, nobody does want to go there in June.
It's nasty in June.
It's hot.
Yeah.
Josh can probably, grab a bus and be there in half an hour because he's in San Francisco.
A little farther than that, but yeah.
You know what, dude? I'm from the Midwest. Everything outside of the, Missouri and Illinois and Indiana is too far for me. Really. So here's the thing, guys. What's one or two things that we are looking forward to either coming out of Infocom as far as products or maybe training or what have you? Josh, I know that you're doing a presentation or you're doing a class there.
Yep.
So let's start with there. What class are you doing, and then maybe what's some other things you guys are looking forward to?
I'm going to be teaching Audio DSP Fundamentals on Thursday, June 19th at 10:30 a.m., schedule number IS043. Oh, yeah, no, I'm pitching already. It's basically I'm going to be talking about gain structure and proper DSP elements, because one of my biggest pet peeves with the AV industry is that it's always big V, little a, and unfortunately that means a lot of the audio training has sort of tailed off. And while SynodCon is a really good place to get an audio education, and as I've talked about previously, Infocom's audio training has sort of been very manufacturer specific, so this is going to be much more broad knowledge, and I'm hoping for a good attendance. So I'm looking forward to teaching that. I'm also going to be helping out with some of the Infocom standards task group stuff while I'm there, and so those are a couple things I'm looking forward to. But gear-wise, I would like to see really whether or not any of these video companies are going to slyly start sneaking people into the back corner of their booth to show off a little bit of AVB product. Mm-hmm. I want to know because it's getting to the point where it can't be ignored anymore. It's gotten enough traction and it's got enough people behind it, especially with Crestron backing it back in January, that you got to wonder whether or not video companies are going to start to take even just a little bit of notice. And so I'm curious about that. That's really the big thing that I want to see what's going to happen with. And then, I don't know. I mean, there's always surprises in those little back corner 10x10s.
You know what? It's one of the things that we've talked about before on this show. And one of our frequent contributors, Dawn Mead, says that's her favorite part is just go back in the back 40. And these are the guys and gals that have the 10x10 booths that you're going to find some of the coolest things in the world. So, absolutely. Mr. Scott, what are you, besides the food, because you're a big foodie,
I am.
What are you looking forward to?
I may have already started to plan my menu.
I wouldn't doubt it. Where am I taking you to dinner this year?
Oh, we'll find someplace.
Okay.
I know a few.
I'm sure you do.
Craft Steaks right up there.
Oh, jeez.
That might be the one.
You're killing me.
As far as Infocom, one of the biggest things, or one of the biggest proponents I have of going to the shows that I try and encourage people about is, it is all about the gear, but so much of it can be and should be about the people, and continuing to develop those relationships and meet, again, not only meet new people and new faces, but continuing to strengthen those relationships you already have.
Yeah. Because
unfortunately in this era of video conferencing and Google Hangouts and stuff like this, we do a lot of this type of interfacing with suppliers and whatnot, but we still, especially where I am, I don't get rep visits very often. I don't get a lot of those because I live in the middle of nowhere, I know.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. I don't get the face-to-faces as often, so I love taking advantage at these shows to get some FaceTime with some of these suppliers and also just some friends in the industry. It's I think it's very important, and I think it's kind of overlooked a lot. But as far as tech, I've got to second that. Getting back into the smaller booths, because when you think about it, most of the great tech that we use today started out in one of those little booths.
Yeah.
Last year, we met the guys from Beam, and they didn't have a 10x10, but they had a small little booth in the back corner by the bathrooms and a crappy little food court.
Yeah.
And that was one of the highlights of the show last year. And, again, it's one of those things when you can get out of your box and, yes, we'll all make it into the Amex booths. We'll make it into the Crestron booths. We'll see all the big guys and all the big stuff that they've been touting and flooding our inboxes for months on. But it's finding those little guys that are bringing something really cool, and also those products. I've written about this countless times. It's about finding those products and touching, being able to feel them and try them and see the little products that help you every day. Not everyone's going to spec 4K DM switchers.
Yeah.
As cool as they are, and as much as everyone's going to want to go see them, touch them, feel them, play with them, look at them, one of the biggest things I like to see is when guys get into finding those things that help make them money every day, opposed to just the flashy products that everyone's going to see and everyone's going to write about.
Yeah, but it's finding those. It's the diamond in the rough, as it were.
Yeah, it's the diamond in the rough, and it's just things that help you, opposed to things that are just cool.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I almost had forgotten about the Beam guys. I'd be interested to see what they do this year, because we had him on the show when we were at Infocom last year, and he was like, we should next year we should bring like 20,000 and have 20,000 of these beams. If you don't remember what the beam was, it was this little it was a personal video conferencing device, and so it's a monitor on a pair of wheels that you control remotely, and you can walk around or roll around an event. And he was all excited about bringing more next year.
Well, yeah, he had big plans. I remember talking to him for quite a while outside of the studio where we were recording before he was ready to go on, and he was all pumped about the possibility of, as you said, bringing a bunch of these and renting them out to companies that could only send 1 or 2 people, or companies that couldn't send one.
Yeah.
And give them, 2 hours or 4 hours with a beam so that they could traverse the show, drive around, see what they needed to see. And, again, get a little bit of that face-to-face while still being able to experience the show. And I'd love to see if they're able to pull it off and get permission to do it.
Yeah. Because that was, and let's be honest, he also, the way the device works is internet, and sometimes getting internet
at LVCC?
any show floor is interesting. So,
and then let's not forget our new friend Microsoft that's deciding to show up.
Who is that? This is interesting. Who is this Microsoft you speak of that is a platinum sponsor?
It's going to be a booth full of Link.
Oh, shut up.
Wait. Is Zelda going to be there too?
Yes, he is.
Oh, nice. Very well done.
With his hat and his sword.
Very well done.
Maybe a bow and arrow.
Yeah. If you didn't hear, yes, Microsoft is one of the platinum sponsors, and everybody and their brother has written ad nauseum as what we think they're bringing, and nobody really knows. It could be Linked. It could be Surface. Shoot, it might be a bunch of Xbox Ones for all we know.
I hope it's just a giant booth with one padded carpet and no gear. That's just a giant empty booth.
What it's going to be? It's going to be Bill Gates behind glass.
So he's the new Walt Disney.
Oh, jeez. I said glass, not frozen. There's,
He's on his way.
You know what? If there's one person that would benefit, yeah, that would, he could do it. We could use Bill Gates in another 100 years once he's thawed out. All right, guys. Moving on from our friends over at Commercial Integrator, Craig McCormick writes about the Winter Olympics. And what does that have to do with AV, you ask? Well, a bunch of companies threw their hat into helping the Olympics happen. Bosch helped out with some of the hotels that were put up very quickly. NBC is using emerging technologies. Panasonic and a bunch of folks are just really helping out make this happen. So my question to you is, regardless of the fact that it's in Sochi and all of the horrible bathroom/hotel/other issues that these Olympics have been plagued with, Josh, we'll start with you on this one. Does it matter to AV companies? Is this a good idea, I guess is the best way to put it, to be putting their stuff out there, and whether it's at cost or it may just be free to the Olympics and to NBC? Does it make an impact on their bottom line? Is it a good idea?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Coming from, I used to work for TOA, and when the Olympics were in Beijing, there was a ton of TOA in that job, and we used it as huge PR booster, especially when they decided that they want to enter the mass notification market, which is still trying to build up. Which is one of the things that I saw in this one was they brought up the idea that not only are they doing is Bosch doing the security and the fire panels, but they also put the Presidio mass notification system in there, and are using that to integrate between all the devices and do all the control and the announcements for the big Radisson hotel out there. So yeah, with an event like this that only comes along once every 4 years or 2 years, depending on whether or not you want to go summer and winter, it can be a big boon for them, because it gives them the ability to really emphasize a great deal of marketing for pretty minimal cost when you think about it. So it really can help the bottom line on the marketing in the long run. Is it going to do much for them in the short run? Well, only if people find a way to really monetize it. You really have to put a marketing push behind it before you can do much with it. But yeah, if you can demonstrate what you were capable of doing, lots of system diagrams and things like that as to how it worked, and throw the weight of Olympics behind that system, people are going to pay attention.
Does it help when the Olympics are a success rather than a PR? I'm not going to say nightmare, but a PR bad dream.
When you're talking about it from the perspective of, the issues of human rights that we keep hearing about that are going on in Russia, that's going to be the thing that's remembered about. That's what we're going to remember from this Olympics, I think, more than anything else. Yeah. That and maybe all the 19 medals that Netherlands won in speed skating.
It's ridiculous, yeah.
It's insane. But beyond those two things, those are the two things I'm going to remember from this Olympics: are the human rights issues and 19 medals for Netherlands. And fantastic.
And they say pot slows you down. I'm just sorry.
Well, on the other hand, though, you got to think that most often when we think back about large events like this, we don't think about corporate sponsorship.
Yeah.
Now, if we're thinking of
unless it's Coke or McDonald's,
Right. Yes. But if we're thinking about it from an AV perspective, you will remember, again, as long as the systems function and there's no dramatic issues, that can be a good, again, PR push for those companies. The other thing to keep in mind is, as you know, Tim, I've done a ton of House of Worship stuff, and every, 6 months after every Olympics, the market gets flooded quite effectively with all the Olympic paraphernalia, because they sell off all this broadcast gear after the events are done. And it does become a big boon into the used market, especially for broadcast stuff, of this stuff taking off and being widely available with all their cams and everything else that comes with it, which is always a nice little added bonus in the back end.
Well, yeah, absolutely, because they've got to do something with it. Actually, I have a friend of mine in St. Louis here who... he's older now and retired, but back in the 90s and in the 80s and the 90s, he worked for CBS and NBC, and that was part of what his deal was. Is he would engineer some of the Olympics and then help sell it off to nonprofits. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we did a project after the 2000 games, and we were able to supply pretty much an entire rig minus switchers from Olympic year, which was great, because it came in, it was used for a month, and then it's done. So it's great for that side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk about something that some of us don't. It's not exciting, but it's interesting at least. Just Lamps discovers a fake lamp in its own stock. This is from innovateonthenet.net. Quote unquote, after the embarrassment of finding fake Epson projector lamps in its stock, lamp distributor and counterfeit crusader, I like that line, Just Lamps is using this tale as a warning to resellers and users. So here's a question for you guys. First, how do you tell a fake lamp from a real one, and how do we stop this from happening again? Mr. Scott, we'll start with you on this one.
Oh gosh, it's I've seen so many lamps that look real until you put them in and you turn it on and go, yeah, something's not right with this. I've seen some very good counterfeits. It's becoming increasingly hard to tell the difference between the good counterfeits and the real ones. With the really cheap knockoffs, you can always tell in the chassis construction and whatnot. But I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I wish I did.
So here's the question for you. Then is it something where if let's say that you buy it from Just Lamps, a reputable company who, like the article states, is on a crusade to stop this from happening? Is it something where you immediately say, you call up the company you bought it from and say, look, I got this thing and it doesn't look right, or it doesn't, it's not fitting quite right, or I have to jiggle it to get in there, or it blew up as soon as I plugged it in. Is that what is that the process then? Is that what we're talking about, where we let them know as soon as we know?
Yeah, that's always the best thing to do. I know for ourselves, we never stock lamps.
Yeah.
We literally bring them in as is, and to be perfectly honest, I try to buy from the manufacturer every time. I try not to use the resellers. I try not to use anybody else, because again, there's so many issues with that. So often getting stuff that's not up to par. So for myself and our company, we pretty much always try to, if it's an Epson, we'll just buy it direct from Epson as long as we can get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do have to go back to them right away, because it's like anything. If I install a system for a client and in a year I get a call saying, that bulb should have lasted this long, we only used it this much and it's dead, it's very hard for us to come in and deal with that. But if I know right off the bat, that there's a problem, I can address it.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of due diligence on our side to ensure that we do all we can to inform the manufacturers or wherever we purchased a product from if there's an issue. Because the longer you let it sit, the less chance it's going to get resolved effectively.
That makes sense. Josh, not just lamps, but other things have cropped up in the counterfeit area. How do we stop this? Whether it's you used to work for TOA, so whether it was a TOA amp or a matrix, or it's a Crestron DM or it's a lamp, how do we mitigate this?
Curtailing it it's hard. I mean, the biggest issue that you have is the fact that it's not happening. It's not a stateside issue. It's
no, yeah.
The factories, these factories out there that, the way that my understanding, and I will admit that, well, I'm probably deeper than most in this. I'm not as in depth as I possibly could have been while I worked for a manufacturer. You hire a factory, you give them the specs, you do to get the build out, you do the build out. Well, the thing is, they don't necessarily return those specifications, or they don't necessarily not copy those specifications, and then the next manufacturer comes in to do their run, and they still have the specifications. Well, things can get shifted, things can get changed, a new rubber stamp can get put on the box, a new label, and hey, look at that, it's a very similar product. TOA had one specific speaker model that was probably the best seller they had, which was the HX5. Every trade show, they had 5 or 6 Japanese engineers that would wander the show floor looking at every audio company, and they would find at least 3 lawsuits just for that one product.
Wow.
And there was cease and desist orders sent out every single year because people saw what this thing did and were like, we're going to copy that. And it was a product that people wanted, and people saw what TOA did and found a way to copy it. But I think they'd send out 6 cease and desist letters in the time I was there. Some of the companies, they weren't big enough for it to really matter, but some of them, it could have played a big impact. The bigger issue in all of this, in terms of the stopping it, is less about guys like Matt and you and me. Think about the enterprise clients who have an in-house AV team. I mean, those AV guys aren't necessarily going to know what a counterfeit is versus not a counterfeit. These are guys that are there to support the clients and to support the teachers in a university, and to support the infrastructure of the system. So if they pull a lamp out of a box and it's a counterfeit, how are they supposed to know? No, I mean, until literally they stick it in and it blows their projector up, how are they going to know? And these are the guys, as opposed to us who are buying from manufacturers, because we have manufacturer relationships. A lot of these places might not have that manufacturer relationship, so they're going to be buying from the distributors and these warehouses that are stocking lamps. So those are the guys that this is a bigger issue for, because now it's, this is a counterfeit crusading company who found fake lamps in their stock. So what are their clients supposed to do now if that comes up? And I imagine, in this case, that there was a lot of outreach of, oh, hey, we found out that these were fake, please verify, and checking in with them, and a lot of follow-up. I would probably give a great deal of credit given the effort that these guys have gone to just in the article itself. Yeah. But how many people are going to be that responsible when they find fake lamps in their stock?
Yeah, that's
or other fake products.
Or other fake products. Yeah, that's a good point.
And so often, a lot of these in-house teams and smaller guys, whatnot, they're going after something strictly based on price point, and they look at it. And I know we just did one for an older Panasonic model, and the knockoffs bulbs were like $120 versus the manufacturer that's a $450 bulb.
Yep.
And I'm talking to the owner of the company and saying, hey, here's what it's going to be. And he's like, well, I found one online for $150 and it says it's from Panasonic. And I'm like, yep, that's Amazon. And no, it's not. Well, why can't I just do it? Because it's not, it's not going to work. You're buying a knockoff for a minute. Product. Well, you hope. Yeah. You hope at least you'll get some time out of it. But the bigger issue is what happens when they go and buy it, put it in, and it blows up as you said, Josh, it blows up their projector. Who are they going to get mad at? Amazon? They're going to go after Amazon for it? No, they're going to yell at us.
You or Panasonic, one of the two. Well,
Yeah.
And here's the other issue: is not just that. I mean, Matt does a lot of work with House of Worships. I still volunteer at my church. It's not those people, right? Yes, churches are concerned with bottom line, and they sometimes they get a bad rap because they will inevitably find this something else online cheaper, and
they can find a knockoff.
They can find a knockoff for 10% of what you're trying to sell it to them for. It really comes down, and Josh mentioned this, is the technology managers, right? It's the guys and gals who support Microsoft. It's the teams that work at UCLA or NYU. These folks have got 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 AV rooms. Each one has a projector, and you start comparing the difference between, let's say you have 1,000 rooms, because I'm not good at math and it's easy to round, and use Matt's example, 450 versus 150. Well, that's $300 times 1,000.
Yep,
it's a lot of money, and when you're talking about budgets and stuff like that. And sometimes you're willing to roll the dice. I mean, you're talking to a former technology manager here. Sometimes you're willing to roll a dice for $30,000 savings. Are you kidding me? Sometimes it's the whole thought of, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'm going to save $30,000 in one hand, but I might lose one or two projectors.
Well, it depends. You may lose a hand while you're doing it.
That's what interns are for. Interns and student workers. So
nice.
All right, moving on.
But again, that always comes back to, and this is one of the things that I can't stand is it's not always about the bottom line. It has to be about quality.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And if you care, we're to a point in society where we're all about, how cheap can I get this for, versus how well can you make this work?
Yeah.
And especially for us in, what we do in the tech field, if we can help to promote that, let's do it right, not do it cheap, but do it right, do what the client needs, and do what will serve the client best, opposed to just what hits the bottom line the best, we'll slowly get away from this, and we'll slowly knock out, people making knockoff products, because if we delete that market from them, there'll be nothing to sell it to.
Yeah, no, that's true. You are listening to AV Week. That gentleman right there is Matt Scott from Omega Audio Video. Also with us is Josh Drago from ICS. One of the things that we might very well see at InfoComm this year is more, let's call it twisted pair or video over IP stuff. Wirestorm this week, according to CE Pro, is launching another line of their HDMI over IP technologies based on HDBaseT. Here's the thing, and this is something that it was an epiphany last year, I guess. Up until this point, up until last InfoComm, I had seen HDBaseT and AVB as competitors, head-to-head competitors, and you either in one camp or another. And anymore, I don't. HDBaseT is a fine product. It's point-to-point, and AVB is a great product for doing distributed over the network and stuff like that. The question for you guys is this. You both mentioned seeing something, being interested in seeing what they're going to bring to InfoComm this year. Where do we see this going? Whether it's HDBaseT, whether it's AVB, whether it's something none of us have thought about yet. Where do we see, let's just call it the video over IP, going in the next maybe 5 years? Josh, we'll start with you on this one.
We're going to start with me.
Yes.
Well, I did write the article about a month ago where I got tired of hearing the AVB versus HDBaseT argument, because it's not competitive. It's not. And I put it up. It was interesting because I put that up on LinkedIn, and I started a 3-week argument on LinkedIn where all anybody did was try and pick a winner.
Oh, jeez.
And the whole point of the article was to say AVB and HDBaseT are exactly what you said. One is a point-to-point solution. One is a distributed solution. But all anybody tried to do was say, oh, no, this is the one that's going to win. This is the one that's going to win.
Yeah, well, and that's the way it felt like for the first year that both of them were kind of...
We need another format war. Come on. Just let us have a format war.
Oh, do you miss your beta? Is that what you're saying, Matt?
I do.
No, here's the thing. The last format war doesn't matter anymore because Blu-ray won, and who cares? So,
and now it's gone.
And now Blu-ray's losing to streaming, so there we go.
There you are.
But in terms of where we're going to go with video over IP, I mean, SVSI started it. It's that they were the guys that got in there first, and they started putting video on the network. And where Wirestorm is going with it on this one is a great progression for that. And we all know that this is the progression: is put it all on the network, put it all on the network. And I mean, security systems are already doing it all across the network. The issue is going to come down to, at some point in time, all of these network backbones that have been constructed are going to have to be completely overhauled in order to handle the size, the capacity of file movement across the network. Just because, you know, they went in and they built these gigabit switches and they installed all these to move all the data around, and now more and more things are starting to land on the network, and more things are going to continue to land on the network. And we need to have the infrastructure set up to do that. So at some point in time, they're going to have to overhaul the whole system. And that's just thinking from the idea of a single building. Now imagine all these companies that exist across a state or across a country. Think Google. Think eBay, even. You know, companies that have offices located all across the country. Well, now you want to start moving all of these signals across, you know, thousands of miles. How is the network infrastructure that's currently in place going to be able to handle that? Google Fiber.
Says the San Francisco boy, but go ahead.
Woo-hoo!
Beat me to it.
So that's kind of, you know, that's the bigger question in my mind is, yes, it's eventually going to end up on the network. You can move HDBaseT if you want to keep it as an isolated solution, but that's still, you're looking at a twisted pair solution. If you're going to go AVB, you're going across the network. If you're going to go, one of the other ones that came up in the audio world last year, 2 years ago, was Revana, but nobody in the U.S. is talking about it at all.
I've never even heard of it. What is it?
It's another IP audio transmission solution, and it actually was mentioned. It was brought up recently in another article, but it was actually it was brought up in one of the articles you sent us about the technology moving in the Olympics. They're using Revana for the way that they move their audio solutions around. So it's another audio transmission, but nobody in the U.S. is talking about it at all. It seems to be a pretty much European standard that they're sort of living with. That's not AES-67. That's not AVB. That's not Dante. That's not Gobernet. That's not. I'll even go Ethersound on this. It's another. Ooh. Yeah, let's dig deep. So, Jeez. You know, every time we say, oh, we found a new standard or we found where it's going, somebody's going to come out the next week and there's going to be another one. It's going to go that way until we really reach a point where something either does everything or everyone stops arguing about which one's better, or somebody settles the argument.
I'm sorry, but none of those are going to happen, Josh. Hey,
I know. That's why I said we're going to continue to have this until that happens.
Oh, all right, Mr. Scott, where are we going with video over IP?
Well, Josh was pretty much hit the nail on the head. It will come down to the formats won't matter as much as the infrastructure to support them, because just as you said, you know, we can take it as bare bones as the basic infrastructure across the country right now. It can barely support half of what we're doing, and you look at wanting to go to an enterprise grade multi-location situation where you're running AVB or whatever over that already SLAM network. It's not going to happen. And the deployment for something like Google Fiber, which wasn't it just this week it announced another 20 cities or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
34.
That's right. That's not going to happen fast enough. We've got the Comcast Time Warner merger potentially that's
going to happen too fast.
Yeah, if that gets approved, yeah, very much so. But you know, once that gets approved, same thing. It's not going to help us today. We're still way too far away. We're still way too far away from having the infrastructure to support any of these things effectively. Let alone, you know, when you throw into the mix that they want to start throwing 4K across the network, a la Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
What, you know, we can't. I know locally here, we have some fiber, very, very limited, and our other systems can't support that at all. We can barely support 1080p at full resolution over the network, let alone 4K, let alone AVB, let alone anything else.
Well, let me ask you this, and then this is where I come in for when it comes to both Avenue Alliance or the AVB and HDVHT. I don't see it as currently, let's say the next year or so, a wide area network. Where it goes from city to city, or you're going from town to town. I see it more local, right? It's about what's in the building or what's in the building next to you. That's where it's really going to do the biggest. It's going to have the biggest impact currently. Like let's say, again, the next year or two, and maybe, just maybe, by the time it gets to the point where it's going from L.A. to Chicago, all the fiber will be done, and we'll all serve Google, and it'll be a happy.
But even in a lot of local enterprise situations, they don't have the infrastructure currently to support it. The one article I was that you sent, I think I was reading one of the comments. Somebody had commented, just put in a 48 port Cisco managed switch, and it'll handle. I think they were talking about AVB, and it'll handle everything at 2K. And it was like, I know here we can't do that. That's not even a possibility. We're spending like $6 to get that. But half of the enterprise solutions that we service currently, they could not support that. Half the time we have to run full new deployments just to go to IP phone systems.
Oh, wow.
Just because, again, unless it was built in the last 3-4 years, half the time you're talking minimal Cat 5 drops, let alone anything bigger. We've progressed so fast that unless you are one of those major corporate centers, you won't have any of this infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
or they'll throw it on and it'll it'll bog everything down and inherently have just way too many issues. Like, again, we see it all the time just in IP, connected phone situations, let alone throwing something much bigger on.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will have to see, seriously, because
but I still want to fight.
No.
No, come on.
No.
I think HDBC is going to win.
Let's do.
Unless AVB wins.
Let's do AVB versus Dante. How about
HDBC can win your heart. How about that?
But your infrastructure will be AVB. So. All right. We're gonna. Here's the thing. I'm just gonna start this, and we'll. There it is. DTP Crosspoint 84 switcher from Extron. Okay. There is no love lost between me and Extron. I'm just, let's be honest.
And that's how the fight starts.
And that's how it starts. A couple of articles have come out. I've written one of them. Some other folks have written some. One of the more interesting one was that said, this is the DTP Crosspoint 84 switcher is Extron's foray into battling the Innova and Crestron DMPS, which is an all-in-one box. My poorly written article just says, no, it's not. Just period. It's just
It was just that. It was one sentence.
It's one sentence. No, it's not. Actually, the first place I heard about this was on LinkedIn a month ago. And our old friend Adrian Boyd actually asked that question. Said, is this going to be their DMPS, their competitor? And I said, my first response was, no, it's not. And then, he's like, well, why? And I explained. Here's the thing, okay? The thing about the Innova and the DMPS, you have three AV products in one, all right? You can say 4 because it has an amplifier too. So let's say 4. You have a control system. You have a DSP and audio processor. You have a video switcher. And you have an amplifier. If you're missing one of those components, you're not competing. Period. End of sentence. It's not a competitive. It's not. You should not put it in the same category. It's still, I'm sure, a fine switcher. DTP is something that Extron has worked an awfully hard on, and they've got it right in the installation. In the installations that I've seen, it works fine. But this DTP Crosspoint 84 switcher is not a DMPS killer. It is not even a DMPS fighter. It's not in the same category. It's simply not. Then you throw on the fact that both the DMPS and the Innova have legacy inputs on the back. This thing has none. It has their DTP inputs, which technically you could purchase the transmitters for those. It also has HDMI. That's it, right? That's it. That's what you've got. You want video, it's going to have to be digital, or you're going to have to buy some sort of transmitter device. Both the Innova and the DMPS have that. Is that important for new installations? Probably not. But when you work in education or house of worship and you're trying to support legacy connections, that's a big deal, right? It's a huge deal, and that's where a lot of my wheelhouse is education, and that because that's where it came from, right? That's the big seller. That's how Crestron gets them. That's how they got me. Was the fact that you've got you walk in with whether the first MPS, which was their quick media one. Here you go, guys. You can do whatever you want. And support your old stuff and make way for your new stuff. And this thing simply doesn't do it. That's my soapbox. I will give you gentlemen time to either refute me or do whatever you want to. Mr. Shrago, we'll hit you first.
You're right. It's not. Period. Given one of the reasons that the DM has been so successful, and one of the reasons that the AMX equivalent is also, I don't use it as much. I tend to stick to the DM because I stick with what I've had the most exposure to, most training on, and I know is reliable. One of the things that comes down to it is there isn't an engineering aspect to it almost. It's very simple of you buy the box, you buy the the endpoints that you need to utilize for it, the scalers or the transmitters, whatever it may be, and you're done. Mm-hmm. That's it. Here it's you're buying a box. Okay, well now that you bought that box, now you need to add the scalers and the transmitters. And
it has a scaler in it. It has a scaler built in.
Okay, so it's got the built-in scaler. Yeah. So for your single display solution, which again now you're minimizing it to that aspect, but and that's again where the DMPS has an advantage. The DMPS would have an advantage in that you've got multiple output potential for multiple displays. So think about all these corporate conference rooms where you putting dual displays in for video conferencing. Okay, great. Now you're thrown out of that application because you need dual scalers, one for each. So there's that. That's gone. You have no control system. You have to engineer that to work with it, and then on top, and then as you said, it's even working. You mentioned the fact that it's in education. You still see a lot of analog. Mm-hmm. I work in Silicon Valley. We still see a lot of analog.
No.
Oh yes.
That's sacrilegious.
It's still there. People still want it. People still want it to be a part of it, and. What you end up, and basically it just boils down to because you don't know what people are coming in with, and so they want to still have a VGA connection on a lot of these wall plates. They want to still have, yes, you're going to see applications where it is straight DisplayPort or HDMI. We see that becoming more commonplace in the new designs, but that's not what's currently installed.
Yes.
And if you want to integrate to what's currently in the world, now you're shooting yourself in the foot. So. Yeah, it's there, and then of course you get into the 4K aspect and the the 30 hertz versus 60 hertz and grumble. Yawn,
well, the reason I in the article I wrote, I put the 4K thing there, but let's be honest. Crestron last week at ISE said that they're doing 4K-ish stuff too, and it's not. It is, but it's not. So, I put that in the article that I wrote, but all of them are doing 4K exactly the same. So
it's 4K.
Thank you for the air quotes. Yeah, 4K.
Air quote.
Yeah, we're calling it 4K. It may be 4K. We don't know yet.
You know what? You'd be better served to call it UHD. Ultra high definition. Just don't use the 4K.
Well, now you're getting into a resolution war.
Okay.
It's something over 1080p.
Yes,
that's what we've got for you.
We're not quite sure
something
what.
Better than 1080.
I didn't say better. I just
1081.
Mr. Scott.
Oh gosh.
Go ahead.
Well, this is one of those areas where I am not as skilled as both of you. Because, pardon?
Nothing.
Sorry, I had a weird connection. I'm on mobile. It happens.
It happens.
The moose must have stopped in the network center. So, give him another carrot. He'll be fine. Anyways, so I don't deal with this on a daily basis like you guys do. Calm down, Josh. It's okay.
The moose just got me. I couldn't help it.
They have meese in Canada.
Yes. But, that being said, this is one of my issues that I see all the time in all facets of our industry. We get into these little competitive, kind of the same as the AVB conversation. We get into these little competitive comparisons of this is the same as this. Well, it's really not. It so rarely is something where you can put product A and product B on a pedestal side by side and they do the exact same thing and we're going to actually shoot out which one's better.
Yeah.
They all have all these little intricacies that make one more suited for this project than this is suited for that product. Granted, most people kind of know where I stand on the Extron situation and how they've supported and not supported us in the last couple of years, and some of the products that they've brought that are kind of goofy and silly. But I said it, I sell it, it's okay.
Yeah.
But, every time I see so many people in our industry get on and start whining and complaining about, getting into these little grudge matches as if we said that their kid sucks at soccer, we're not. We're literally just trying to have a discussion about the product. And if they match up and they are actually comparable properly, then yes, let's have a discussion. But, I'm in a parking lot right now, Mike AV Brands, as you just asked, and I'm in my truck. It's a Yukon. The car beside me is a VW Rabbit. Yes, they're both cars. They're both cars. See, look, you can see it. Little VW. It's convertible. Cabriolet. Fancy. They're both cars. They will both get you from point A to point B. A, I couldn't drive one ever, but B, it's not like yes, it's a car. Can we compare them outside of the fact that they're both cars? No.
Yeah, but at least they both have four wheels.
Yes.
I mean,
and both both the Crestron DM products have power supplies, and so does the Extron. They both have power supplies. They both are made of metal. Great, awesome.
That's where they differ. Sorry.
It's not the same thing.
No.
So it drives me mad to see all this, because for someone like myself, if I'm going in to spec one of these products and I'm calling up someone because I need some help, or the distributor's not really helping me, or the manufacturer isn't giving me the info I need, and I go to Google search it, and all I get is all this bickering back and forth that doesn't actually answer any of the questions we're actually asking. It's just useless drivel. And I think that's one of the things that drives me crazy about these little comparisons all the time, is that when they're not the same, stop trying to compare them.
Yeah.
Because they're not. They're not comparable. They're two completely different products when it comes down to actual application uses.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now I'm off my soapbox, but I'm still sitting in my car.
Well,
and it's actually interesting about one thing you brought up there. They're different products. What happens when two manufacturers might actually produce two products we could put on pedestals and compare A to B? At what point then do the patent lawsuits begin?
Well, and they always will.
But here's the thing. I mean, the reason I mentioned the AMX, because I've used their product. I've tested their product out. I've demoed it for the college I used to work for. So I've actually had my hands on it, and I'm not aware of any patent lawsuits between Extron or between Crestron and AMX. But they both those would be two products I would put in the same category, right? Because again, they have the four basic components of an all-in-one box. They have a processor, a control processor. They have an audio processor, video, and an amplifier, and that's
Okay, so here's my example for that.
Yes,
we're a big Lutron house. We sell a lot of Lutron, a lot of Radio Raw, good stuff. They are in a perpetual lawsuit with Crestron, as Crestron is with Lutron over the Infina-X DX dimmers, I believe it is. They're, they hired Lutron engineers to come over and then make this product. They're the same bloody product. They're both dimmers. They work identically the same. Yet you can still get into debates with people, and I've done it, over which one's better. And in all honesty, they're bloody dimmers. They're kind of pretty much the same. They're again, they're in a patent suit over essentially how much money company A is going to pay company B for every dimmer they sell, because they're the same product. The only difference is one is controlled natively by Lutron, one is controlled natively by Crestron. But they're the same. So you can have that comparison. But all these other ones where, again, it's different, there is no comparison.
No.
And again, we're not talking a speaker. We're not talking a loudspeaker with a 15-inch woofer and a Silk Dome tweeter that sits, on a stick and is powered by the same wattage as, company B's loudspeaker. So yeah, those, sure, compare the heck out of them. They're speakers. Who cares? They can be pretty much identical.
What?
And they'll just sound a little different.
And in that same vein, though, Matt, they're switchers. Who cares? I
know, but look at the comments.
I know. Believe
me. Look at all the freaking comments. Every time I see these diatribes from people, I always come back to what do you guys do? I need your job. Because if you've got this much time to post crap on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and all these other websites, good Lord God, if I had that much time, I'd own another country.
You do. You own Canada. All right.
Well, I know.
And what's the other thing about the Extron one is I actually won lunch because part of what's interesting, the way they're marketing this and they're positioning this, one of the guys I work with now, he's like, we were talking about the connectors on the back, and he just assumed that since they were marketing it as an all-in-one box, that it had some or some sort of analog components on the back. And I said, no, it doesn't. And so we bet lunch over it, and sure enough, So
you won.
That's part of I guess where my positioning on this is it's somewhat dangerous for those who are speccing the product, because of the way Extron is positioning this. They're positioning it as an actual all-in-one product comparable to the DMPS or the Innova, and it's simply not. So, all right, that's all I've got. And that's going to do it for this week, guys. Thank you both so much for joining us. Matt for getting up late, and Josh for getting up early. Josh Shraga.
I was up early.
Yeah, whatever. He's from ICS. Also, go to his website, soundreason.org. Thank you, sir.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Where can people find you besides the website and the Twitter?
Website, Twitter. You can also find me on LinkedIn. That's where you'll be bombarded with my never-ending articles on my website, the Red Band website, and Infocom's All Voices blog.
And where can they watch you teach away this summer at Infocom 2014?
On June 19th at 10:30 a.m., you can sign up for the IS-043 Infocom University Audio DSP Fundamentals course and hang out with me for an hour and a half.
And again, DSP fundamentals are gain structure.
We're going to be focusing on gain structure. We're going to be focusing on what all of the elements are, and really getting back to basics of audio education.
You'll be doing any auto mixing in that class?
I'll probably mention it.
Okay, I hate auto
Will you
mixing.
have tables and chairs in that class?
Only if Infocom provides them.
Will you have coffee?
Well, if they're comfy,
I'll have coffee. That doesn't mean I'll
come
have
take a
coffee
little
for
nap.
you.
All right. Mr. Scott, thank you so much. Where can people find you?
you can find me on Twitter and the Facebooks and everything else, either under Omega Audio Video or Matt D. Scott. You can also visit us on our website at OmegaAudioVideo.com and all the other fun stuff. You can catch my stuff on SCN and a couple other sites.
Yeah, I was thumbing through that the other day, and I was, I'm like, holy crap, I know that guy.
Hey, in print.
In print, no less.
In print.
Yeah, it's almost official.
Fancy.
Yeah.
They'll never let me across the bar.
How much did you pay Kirsten for that, by the way?
How much do I pay Kirsten for that? Just a lot, mainly for the headshot.
Well, it's a nice headshot.
Well,
Yeah. All right. Don't follow me. Go by the website because Mr. Scott is a very talented webmaster as well. He did the website. So, avnation.tv, avnation.tv. You'll find this program and a ton of others. Sometime next week, we're doing A State of Control. A new education, ed tech coming down the line. A new AV social coming up. A whole bunch of stuff. So, yeah, go by the website, avnation.tv, avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. That's all the time we have for AV Week.